AITA for refusing to let my mother move in with me after she retired, even though my siblings think I should. I, 34F, have been living in my own apartment for about 8 years. I work in marketing, and I make a decent living, but I also have student loans, credit card payments, and a mortgage to pay off on my own. I live alone, and I've built my life around having my own space, routines, and independence. My mother, 62F, recently retired, and she approached me with the idea of moving in because she claims she wants to save money and be closer to family. On paper, it doesn't sound unreasonable, but there are many reasons why I said no. First, our relationship has always been complicated. We love each other, but she has a very controlling personality. Growing up, she often made decisions for me, criticized my choices, and even now can be overbearing with unsolicited advice. I have tried to maintain boundaries as an adult, but I know that living together would likely erode them. My apartment is small, and while it's enough for me, it would feel cramped with another person. I worry about losing the autonomy I've worked hard for, like the ability to decorate, host friends, or even just have personal quiet time. Second, I have my own life and routines that she might not respect. I'm very particular about my schedule and my space. I work long hours and sometimes have friends over in the evenings or weekends. She tends to be very vocal and demanding, and I fear that sharing a home would lead to constant friction. For example, when she visited recently for a weekend, she rearranged my kitchen without asking, criticized the way I keep my apartment clean, and insisted on making all the meals. It made me feel like I wouldn't have any control in my own home if she were living with me permanently. When I told her I didn't think it would work out, she got very emotional and said that I was being selfish and that family should support each other. She said it's not just about convenience. It's about spending her retirement years with people she loves and making memories. I tried to explain that I support her in other ways, visiting her regularly, helping with errands, taking her out for meals, but that living together would be too much for me. She accused me of abandoning her in her retirement, which really hurt. The situation escalated when I talked to my siblings about it. I have a younger brother, 30M, and an older sister, 36F. Both of them think I'm in the wrong. My sister said I'm being short-sighted and selfish, that I should prioritize family over personal comfort. My brother said it's not just about comfort, it's about responsibility. They argue that since she doesn't have much savings and might struggle with rent or bills on her own, I should let her move in. They've even suggested that I could compromise by sharing my apartment for a year or so while she gets on her feet, but I feel that's an invitation to disaster. I offered alternative solutions, like helping her find a smaller place closer to me, contributing to some of her bills temporarily, or arranging more frequent visits so we can spend quality time together without living together. She rejected all of these options, saying they don't compare to living together and that I'm being unreasonable. My siblings backed her up and told me that I'm prioritizing my freedom over my own mother, which made me feel guilty. Part of me wonders if I am overreacting. I know she's retired and might feel lonely, and I know she values family closeness. But at the same time, I feel that my boundaries and mental health matter too. I've seen people in similar situations where moving in with parents or adult children leads to constant arguments, resentment, and strained relationships. I want to maintain a healthy relationship with my mother, not one that's full of tension, because we can't coexist in a small space with different routines and personalities. It's been a few weeks since I told her no, and things have been tense. She hasn't visited much, and my siblings keep messaging me to reconsider. I'm starting to feel like the bad guy in this scenario, and it's weighing on me heavily. I don't want to abandon her or hurt her in her retirement years, but I also don't want to sacrifice my own space, independence, and mental well-being. I've tried to frame it as a practical issue, small apartment, different schedules, personal boundaries, but they all keep framing it as emotional and moral. I'm torn because I do love my mother and want her to be happy, but I also know that living together would likely lead to conflict and resentment on both sides. I'm now questioning whether I handled it the right way. Should I have offered more compromises, like letting her stay for a few months temporarily? Should I just suck it up for the sake of family harmony, even if it comes at a personal cost? Or is it reasonable to prioritize my own boundaries and independence, even if it disappoints my mother and siblings. I don't want this to ruin my relationship with my mom, and I don't want my siblings to view me as cold or unkind, but I also don't feel comfortable giving in. I'm struggling to find a balance where I can support her without compromising myself completely. So, AITA for refusing to let my mother move in with me after retirement, even though my siblings think I should. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. AITA for refusing to let my brother's girlfriend live with us, even though he claims I'm being unreasonable. I, 29F, live with my younger brother, Alex, 26M, in the house we inherited from our parents a few years ago after they passed away unexpectedly. I've always been the responsible one when it comes to finances, household management, and keeping the peace between us. Alex has a good heart, but tends to be impulsive and sometimes careless, which has caused tension between us in the past. Despite our differences, we generally get along and have always had each other's backs. About a year ago, Alex started dating a woman named Vanessa, 27F. At first, I like her well enough. She seemed friendly and had a good sense of humor. However, I soon noticed patterns that worried me. She frequently made excuses for not working, often relied on Alex financially, and had a history of unstable living situations. Alex, on the other hand, seemed completely smitten and told me he planned to propose within the next year. The conflict started when Vanessa casually mentioned she might need a place to stay for a few weeks while she dealt with some issues in her apartment. Alex immediately supported the idea and said I should be fine with it. I explained to both of them that while short-term visits might be okay occasionally, I was uncomfortable with her living here long-term. I have a demanding job that requires focus and quiet, and our house is not particularly big. Additionally, I value my privacy and the sense of control I have over our shared space. Alex dismissed my concerns, saying that Vanessa would be temporary and that I was overreacting. Things escalated when Vanessa moved in for what she said would be just 2 weeks. Within days, she began leaving her belongings all over the house, demanding to be included in meals, and insisting that I rearrange furniture to make her more comfortable. She frequently left dirty dishes in the sink for days, borrowed items without asking, and expected me to accommodate her lifestyle. Alex argued that she was part of the family now and that I needed to be more welcoming. I tried to explain that welcoming someone doesn't mean compromising my living environment or tolerating disrespectful behavior. But both of them accused me of being selfish and controlling. The situation reached a breaking point when Vanessa wanted to bring her cat into the house. I am allergic to cats, and I have severe reactions that require me to take medication daily. I told Alex and Vanessa that a pet in the house was non-negotiable. Alex tried to negotiate, saying we could keep the cat in her room, but I reminded him that allergies could be triggered even by limited exposure and that my health needed to come first. Vanessa became upset, claiming I was making everything about me and that she should be able to live comfortably. Alex sided with her, and we had a huge argument that lasted hours. After that, I set clear boundaries. Vanessa could not live here long term, and visits needed to be planned and limited. Alex was furious, accusing me of being unreasonable and unsupportive of his relationship. He said I was being cold and unloving, and threatened to move out with Vanessa if I didn't back down. I reminded him that he does not live alone here and that our house is a shared space that requires respect and compromise. He responded by sulking, ignoring me, and making passive-aggressive remarks for weeks. The tension has only increased since then. Vanessa continues to visit frequently and leaves messes behind, which I end up cleaning. Alex sometimes apologizes, but he usually reverts to saying I should get along with her and that I'm making a mountain out of a molehill. Our parents' friends and other relatives have also weighed in, with some suggesting I should let her stay and make him happy, which adds to my stress. Recently, Alex told me that Vanessa feels unwelcome and is considering not continuing the relationship if she cannot live here. He asked me again to let her move in permanently, claiming that refusing is destroying their relationship and that I am being unreasonable for prioritizing my comfort over his happiness. I feel torn because I love my brother and want him to be happy, but I also cannot compromise on my living situation, my health, or my personal boundaries. I have tried reasoning, negotiating limits, and explaining my perspective calmly, but nothing seems to satisfy either of them. I have friends who think I am right to set boundaries, but I am beginning to doubt myself because Alex and Vanessa have framed the issue as me being cold, selfish, and controlling. I feel like no matter what I do, I will be cast as the villain, and it is starting to take a toll on my mental health. So, AITA for refusing to let my brother's girlfriend live with us permanently, even though he claims I'm being unreasonable and unsupportive. AITA for refusing to attend my cousin's wedding after years of being treated unfairly by my family. I, 28F, have been estranged from a large part of my family for about 5 years. This estrangement didn't happen overnight. It was the result of years of passive-aggressive comments, unrealistic expectations, and a general pattern of favoritism that I couldn't tolerate anymore. My parents, while not abusive in the traditional sense, always seemed to pit me against my siblings and cousins in ways that left me feeling invisible or inadequate. Every holiday, birthday, or family gathering felt like a competition for attention, and I was always on the losing end. It started in high school. My cousin Laura, 30F, was always the golden child in the family's eyes, academically successful, socially popular, and constantly praised for her achievements. I, on the other hand, struggled with depression and anxiety during those years, and instead of receiving support, I was frequently compared to her in front of relatives. Comments like, "Why can't you be more like Laura?" or "You'll never get anywhere if you don't push yourself like her," became a constant refrain. It wasn't overt cruelty, but the subtle, consistent undermining really took a toll on my self-esteem. My parents also seemed to enjoy gossiping with extended family about my perceived shortcomings, which made me feel humiliated and isolated. College didn't make things better. I moved away and tried to build my own life, but family events were still unavoidable. My cousins would have big reunions, and I would occasionally attend, only to be made to feel out of place. I wasn't allowed to contribute meaningfully, and if I tried, my opinions were dismissed or turned into jokes at my expense. The final straw came during my brother's wedding, where I was ignored in the planning entirely and then subtly criticized in front of other family members for my outfit and my lack of participation in certain activities. That's when I realized I couldn't continue investing in a family that made me feel perpetually inadequate. For the next few years, I limited contact to minimal phone calls with my parents and my closest cousins. I didn't attend reunions or holiday gatherings, and while this created tension, it also gave me peace. I focused on my career, my friendships, and my mental health. Things were calm, and I finally felt like I could breathe without the constant scrutiny of my extended family. Recently, my cousin Laura got engaged. The announcement was sent to the entire family, and invitations were mailed shortly after. I received mine in the mail last week. Normally, I might have considered attending for the sake of maintaining a tenuous connection, but the thought of sitting through a weekend where everyone would compare me to Laura, criticize my choices, or make passive-aggressive remarks about my life instantly filled me with dread. I considered discussing it with my parents or other family members, but I knew that any attempt at explaining my absence would likely be met with guilt-tripping or minimizing my feelings. So, I sent an RSVP declining the invitation. I also sent a message to my parents explaining my reasons briefly. I mentioned that I had felt marginalized and unsupported for years, and that attending would be emotionally harmful. I tried to keep the message calm and respectful, not accusatory, just honest. My phone exploded the next day with messages and calls from relatives. The responses ranged from shocked and hurt to angry and defensive. Some accused me of holding grudges over minor things or being selfish. Others tried to guilt-trip me by saying things like, "Laura is your cousin, and you're ruining her special day," or "Family should stick together no matter what." One end even said, "You're making this about yourself, when it's supposed to be about Laura's happiness," which really hit me because it implied that my feelings and boundaries didn't matter. The situation escalated when my parents called. They begged me to reconsider, saying they were hurt and that the family wouldn't understand. My mother cried on the phone, saying she just wanted her children together for this important event. My father was quieter but still insistent, emphasizing the importance of family unity. I tried to explain calmly that my presence would likely create tension, not harmony, and that I wasn't doing this out of spite but self-preservation. They didn't accept it and ended the call frustrated and silent. Now, other family members are contacting me, asking me to make an effort or suggesting that I at least attend for a portion of the event. I'm feeling torn because part of me doesn't want to escalate the estrangement any further, but the thought of attending fills me with anxiety. I've already started worrying about potential confrontations, subtle criticisms, and comparisons. The wedding is in about 2 months, and I'm feeling increasingly anxious every time I think about family communications. I understand that weddings are important to families and that people expect relatives to attend, but I feel like my mental health and emotional safety should also be considered. I've tried to maintain some boundaries over the past few years, and attending this wedding feels like it would undo all that progress. I also worry that attending might signal to my family that I'm willing to tolerate past behavior, which I really am not. So, Reddit AITA for refusing to attend my cousin's wedding after years of being treated unfairly by my family? I genuinely feel like my reasons are valid, but the pushback has been intense, and I'm questioning whether I should compromise to avoid family conflict. I'm prepared for some backlash, and I know many will say that family bonds should override personal discomfort, but this isn't about a one-time slight. It's about years of feeling marginalized, unseen, and criticized. I'm simply trying to protect myself while respecting my own boundaries. I would like to hear your perspective, especially if anyone has navigated similar long-term family tension and how you manage such situations. AITA for refusing to attend my brother's wedding after what happened last Christmas. I, 32F, come from a fairly close-knit family. My brother, Tom, 35M, and I have always had a complicated relationship, mostly because he has a very controlling personality and tends to make situations about himself. Our parents divorced when we were young, and I was always the one who had to keep the peace in the household. I moved away from home at 19 and have only returned for holidays and major family events. Last Christmas, our family gathered at my parents' house. I had been really looking forward to it because I hadn't seen Tom in almost a year. My parents, Tom, his fiancée, Laura, 30F, my younger sister, Emily, 28F, and I were all there. I had spent weeks preparing a special dessert I knew everyone loved and even brought a few gifts for my nieces and nephews. I arrived a bit earlier than everyone else so I could help my mom set up, and everything seemed fine at first. Tom, however, seemed off the moment I walked in. He started making passive-aggressive comments about how the house was too crowded and how someone should have coordinated the gifts better. I tried to brush it off, assuming he was just stressed about the holidays. But then Laura came in, and I noticed she had this smug expression as if she was enjoying some private joke. Dinner started normally, but soon Tom began interrogating me about my personal life in front of everyone. He asked why I wasn't in a serious relationship yet, why I didn't have kids, why I wasn't climbing the corporate ladder as fast as he thought I should be. I tried to answer politely, but he kept cutting me off and making jokes at my expense. Emily tried to change the subject, but he ignored her. Then came the moment that made me furious. My parents had asked everyone to participate in a gift exchange. When it was my turn, I gave Tom a gift I knew he would like, a rare collector's edition of a book he had mentioned years ago. When he opened it, he looked at it, smiled briefly, and then loudly said, "Oh, you bought this. I already have it, but thanks anyway." The room went quiet, and I could feel the heat rising in my face. I smiled and said, "I didn't know, but I thought you'd enjoy a second copy," trying to keep things light. Instead of letting it go, he said, "Wow, you really didn't think this through, did you? Classic you." Laura snickered behind him. I wanted to leave right then, but I stayed for my parents' sake. After dinner, we moved to the living room for dessert. I brought out the dessert I had spent hours making. As I was setting on the table, Tom suddenly said, "Oh, I already have dessert at home. No need for all this extra sugar." Laura laughed, and my mom looked at me apologetically. I put the dessert away, feeling embarrassed and hurt. The tension didn't end there. Tom started going through old family photos on the living room wall and began mocking pictures of me as a child, making jokes about my weight and awkward phases. Emily tried to intervene, saying it wasn't funny, but Tom brushed her off. My parents didn't say much. They always avoid conflict and just hope it passes. I quietly excused myself to the kitchen, where I stayed for the rest of the evening, trying to avoid further humiliation. The breaking point came when Tom decided it would be funny to reveal a secret about me from our childhood. He started recounting a story about an incident where I had a minor accident in school that left me embarrassed. Everyone laughed, including Laura, except me. I told him I didn't find it funny and asked him to stop. He said, "Lighten up, it's Christmas. You're too sensitive." At that point, I snapped. I told him he was being cruel and selfish, and that I was done being the family punchline. I left shortly afterward without saying goodbye. After Christmas, my parents and Emily reached out to me, saying I overreacted and that I should apologize. Tom sent me a message saying, "I don't know why. You're so upset. It was just fun. Can't you take a joke?" I didn't reply. I felt like my feelings and dignity were being dismissed entirely. Fast forward to now. Tom is getting married in 2 months, and my parents are pressuring me to attend. They say it would be unthinkable not to be there and that I'm breaking family bonds by refusing. Tom sent a long message saying he hopes I'll come because it's a once-in-a-lifetime day, and he wants all his siblings there. I haven't replied. I explained to my parents that I can't bring myself to celebrate with someone who spent an entire evening humiliating me and who shows no remorse. My parents keep saying I'm overreacting and that I should forgive him for a minor holiday spat. Emily is supportive of me, but also says I might regret not attending later. So, AITA for refusing to go to my brother's wedding after what happened last Christmas? I feel like this isn't about a single event. It's about a pattern of behavior and a lack of respect for me. But my parents and Tom act like I'm the one being unreasonable. I know weddings are supposed to be about family, but I also know that walking into that day could mean facing humiliation and passive-aggressive comments again. I want to stand up for myself, but I don't want to be painted as the bad sibling either. Has anyone dealt with a situation where attending a family celebration could mean compromising your self-respect? I just want to know if my reaction is too extreme or if standing my ground is justified. AITA for refusing to let my fiancé's brother stay with us for an indefinite period after he lost his job. I, 28F, have been engaged to my fiancé, Alex, 30M, for about 2 years. We've been living together for 3 years in a 2-bedroom apartment that we rent in the city. Our life together has been pretty stable. We both work full-time, split bills, and try to save money for a house. Recently, Alex's younger brother, Brian, 25M, lost his job and reached out asking if he could stay with us until he got back on his feet. At first, I thought it might be temporary, maybe a week or 2 while he figured things out, but he didn't specify a timeline and made it clear he wanted to stay as long as needed. I was hesitant from the beginning because we've never really had any boundaries with extended family living in our space. Alex comes from a family that tends to rely on each other financially and logistically, so it's not unusual for them to have people move in, but it's not something I've personally experienced. I asked Alex how long Brian thought he would need to stay, and he said he wasn't sure, maybe a few months, maybe longer. That immediately made me uncomfortable because our apartment is small and we have our own routines. We each have a bedroom, and the living room is compact. I started thinking about things like bills, groceries, privacy, and the general strain of having another adult living in our space indefinitely. When I expressed my concerns to Alex, he said I was overreacting. He argued that families should help each other in times of need, and that Brian really didn't have anywhere else to go. He also mentioned that he wouldn't even ask me if it were someone else in the same situation, which made me feel like my boundaries didn't matter. I told him it's not about being selfish. It's about maintaining our life and routine. I explained that I work evenings sometimes, I like having my own space, and I wasn't sure how we would handle chores, groceries, and personal time with another adult living here indefinitely. Alex pushed back, saying that it's not just another adult, it's his brother, and that I was being unsupportive. He also said that Brian would be grateful, that he's responsible, and that it wouldn't be a big deal. I asked him if he had spoken to Brian about a clear plan, like a timeline, financial contribution, or expectations, and he admitted that nothing concrete had been discussed. That made me even more uneasy because without a clear plan, it felt like we would be opening our door to an open-ended commitment that we weren't prepared for. I offered compromises, like Brian staying for a weekend until he could find a short-term sublet, helping him search for roommates, or giving him some money to get temporary accommodation. Alex wasn't satisfied with that and said it was not the same as family helping family, which made me feel trapped. I also asked if Brian would contribute to rent or bills, and Alex said he didn't want to stress him out by asking that, since he just lost his job. That made me feel like we would be subsidizing him entirely with no guarantee of when it would end. The tension escalated when I tried to set a hard boundary. I told Alex that Brian could not move in under the current circumstances. I explained that we would consider it if Brian had a plan, could contribute, and we had a clear timeline, but until then, it wasn't feasible. Alex got very defensive, saying I was being cold, uncompassionate, and anti-family. He said I was prioritizing comfort over helping someone in need, and that if I didn't allow it, it would show a lack of commitment to him and his family values. Brian hasn't even moved in yet, but the discussions have already caused friction. Alex has been snappish and distant since the conversation. He keeps bringing it up as a point of contention, saying that if I truly loved him, I'd make sacrifices for family. I feel frustrated because I do love him, but I also have limits. And I think it's reasonable to expect that before someone moves in, there's a plan and mutual respect for our shared space. I've talked to a few friends, and the opinions are split. Some say I'm completely right to protect our space and routines, especially since there's no plan for Brian's stay. Others say I'm overreacting and that family should come first, and that Alex's reaction is normal for someone expecting support for a sibling. I'm starting to wonder if I handled it wrong, but I also don't want to compromise my home and peace of mind for an indefinite period without assurances. I also worry about precedent. If we allow Brian to move in without rules or timeline, it could encourage other family members to assume the same. I want to help Brian and Alex in ways that are practical, like giving him resources to find temporary housing, helping with resumes, or giving him a small loan for initial rent. But Alex sees this as not enough, and it's creating tension between us. So now I'm questioning if I'm being unreasonable. Am I really wrong for refusing to let Brian move in indefinitely under these conditions, even though he's family and going through a tough time? I want to help, but I also want to maintain boundaries and protect our home life. I'm stuck because my fiancé is upset, and I feel guilty for standing firm. But I also feel like compromising would lead to resentment later. AITA for refusing to let my fiancé's brother stay with us indefinitely after he lost his job, despite my fiancé's insistence that family comes first. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after discovering a major family secret. I, 28F, have always been close to my younger sister, Emily, 25F. We grew up in a small town, and despite the usual sibling rivalries, we've always had each other's backs. Emily has been dating her fiancé, Mark, 27M, for about 3 years. Mark is charming, funny, and seemed perfect for her. I met him a few times and got along okay, though I didn't know him as well as Emily did. Recently, Emily got engaged, and the wedding planning began. From the start, she was excited about having me as her maid of honor, and I was genuinely thrilled. I offered to help with anything: dress shopping, catering choices, venue decorations, you name it. I genuinely wanted her day to be perfect. About a month ago, while helping Emily organize the guest list, I received a message from a mutual friend of mine and Mark's, Jenna, 27F, who I hadn't talked to in a while. She said she had something important to tell me and asked if I could meet her privately. I was curious and agreed. We met at a quiet cafe, and she got straight to the point. She revealed that she had dated Mark for about a year before he started dating Emily. Initially, I was shocked but not too concerned. Past relationships happen. But then she told me something that completely changed things. According to Jenna, Mark had been married, legally married, for about 2 years, and the marriage had never been annulled or divorced. Jenna said she had seen the marriage certificate herself when she accidentally stumbled upon it while helping a friend with some paperwork. I was frozen. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I asked Jenna if she was sure, and she insisted she was. She even offered to show me the documents, but I told her I needed some time to process. I left the cafe feeling sick, confused, and angry. I immediately wanted to confront Mark or Emily, but I knew I had to be careful. I spent the next few days trying to confirm the story. I did some online digging and checked with public records. To my horror, everything Jenna said was true. Mark was indeed still legally married to someone else. I couldn't believe Emily didn't know. I debated for days about what to do. On one hand, I felt obligated to protect my sister from a situation that could ruin her life. On the other hand, I didn't want to become the villain who ruined her wedding. I decided the only right thing was to tell her the truth, even though it was terrifying. When I finally talked to Emily, I tried to be calm and factual. I told her everything I had learned from Jenna and the documents I had found. At first, Emily laughed nervously, assuming I was joking or exaggerating. But when I showed her the public records, her face went pale. She was silent for a long time, staring at the papers. Emily immediately called Mark. I wasn't present for the conversation, but I later found out she confronted him about the marriage. Mark apparently admitted everything. He said he had intended to divorce his first wife, but had never gotten around to it, and claimed he had fallen in love with Emily and didn't want to lie to her anymore. He begged her to reconsider and said he would fix the legal situation before the wedding. Emily was devastated. She was crying, angry, and confused. She told me she didn't know what to do. She felt betrayed, not just by Mark, but by the fact that this secret had been hidden from her for years. Her dream of a fairy tale wedding was completely shattered. Over the next week, Emily called off the wedding. She told Mark she couldn't trust him, and he eventually left town to sort out his legal mess. She was hurt, but eventually grateful that she didn't marry someone who had been dishonest from the start. Now here's where the tension began. Emily's parents and some family members blamed me for everything. They said I overstepped, that I should have let Emily discover the truth on her own, and that I had ruined her big day. They argued that I was meddling and that Mark would have sorted things out quietly if I hadn't intervened. I tried explaining that Emily deserved to know the truth before making a life-altering decision, but they wouldn't listen. They said I had been dramatic and selfish, focusing on my sense of moral duty instead of letting Emily handle her own relationship. Emily, meanwhile, has been appreciative privately, but publicly she's been stressed with family drama. Some relatives have stopped talking to me. My closest friends, however, back me up completely. They say I did the right thing and potentially saved Emily from marrying someone who could have caused serious harm emotionally and legally. I feel conflicted because part of me wants to enjoy the relief of having done the right thing, but the backlash from my family is heavy. They constantly remind me that I ruined a beautiful wedding and made everyone uncomfortable. I know the wedding was canceled, but I also know that the alternative could have been far worse. I'm still in contact with Emily, and she often thanks me in private, saying she can't imagine what her life would be like if she had married Mark. But the tension with my extended family remains. So, AITA for refusing to ignore this secret and intervening, effectively causing Emily to call off her wedding? I feel like I did the right thing, but I'm worried I've permanently damaged my relationship with other family members. The emotional fallout has been intense, and I'm struggling with whether my choice was morally correct or if I should have stayed silent to avoid family drama. Has anyone been in a situation where telling the truth caused chaos, but ultimately protected someone? I just want to know if my actions make me the asshole in this scenario. AITA for refusing to help my sister with her wedding after she insulted my career and lifestyle. I, 32F, have always had a complicated relationship with my younger sister, Emily, 28F. Growing up, we were very different in almost every way. I went straight into college, got a degree in environmental science, and have been working for a nonprofit focusing on climate advocacy for the past 8 years. Emily, on the other hand, has always been more socially driven. She's extremely outgoing, loves parties, and works in event management. Our parents always favored her for her charisma, while I was seen as serious and practical, which they valued less. Despite our differences, we stayed reasonably close. We share holidays, family dinners, and vacations. I've helped her move several times, lent her money when she was short, and supported her career choices, even when I disagreed with them. The tension has always been there under the surface, mostly stemming from how differently we live our lives and the occasional snide remark from her about my boring lifestyle. 2 years ago, Emily got engaged to her fiancé, Mark. From the beginning, she was very particular about her wedding, which I understood. Weddings are a huge deal, and I expected some of her intense planning and opinions. However, the problem escalated quickly. She started sending me messages about what she expected from me. Not just the usual help me choose a dress or come early for photos, but more controlling demands, like insisting I take part in certain pre-wedding events that conflicted with my work schedule or my personal commitments. I tried to communicate that I was happy to be involved, but had limits due to my work, which often involves irregular hours and occasional travel. She brushed me off and told me that my boring, self-righteous lifestyle was getting in the way of her perfect wedding. That hurt, obviously, because I've always supported her events and made time for family even when it wasn't convenient. I tried to ignore it at first, thinking maybe it was wedding stress, but the comments kept coming. The breaking point came 2 months ago. Emily asked me to help with her wedding planning for a weekend intensive workshop she was hosting. I explained I couldn't commit the full weekend because I had a field project that required my presence out of town. She responded by saying, "I guess the important people in my life don't actually care about me. I shouldn't expect support from someone who spends all her time hugging trees and reading reports while normal people live their lives." I was stunned and furious. This wasn't a one-time remark. It was an attack on my entire career and lifestyle, which I'm proud of. I calmly told her that I would not tolerate disrespect, and that while I wished her wedding could be a joyous time, I could no longer participate in the planning if she continued with personal attacks. She responded by crying and accusing me of being selfish, cold, and uncaring, and saying I didn't love her. I decided to take a step back and only participate in parts of the wedding that were unavoidable, like attending the ceremony and reception. I also told our parents what had happened because Emily had started venting to them, trying to make it seem like I was the unreasonable one. They were disappointed and told me to just let it go for her special day, but I felt like that would be enabling continued disrespect. Things got worse last weekend. Emily sent me a final list of tasks she expected me to handle, which included coordinating a large number of vendors, picking up decorations, and essentially being her assistant for the entire day before the wedding. I reviewed my schedule and realized I literally could not do it without quitting my work commitments or risking my job. When I told her this, she exploded, saying, "I can't believe you're choosing your stupid job over your own sister. This proves you don't care about family." I refused to take on the tasks and reiterated my boundaries. Emily then sent a group text to the family and some mutual friends, painting me as the sister who ruined her wedding experience and couldn't even make an effort. Several friends called me asking if I was serious about not helping. I felt attacked and cornered. I responded politely in the group chat, explaining that I love Emily and want to celebrate her wedding, but I cannot and will not endure personal attacks disguised as wedding stress. The day of the rehearsal dinner, I showed up, but Emily barely spoke to me and treated me as a guest rather than her sister. I stuck to myself, helped minimally where absolutely necessary, and left early. My parents were upset with me afterward, saying I could have tried harder and that weddings are meant to be forgiving. I explained that forgiveness is one thing, but enduring ongoing insults and demands was not something I could do in good conscience. Now, the family is divided. Some say I overreacted and should have put Emily first for one weekend, while others understand my perspective. Emily has not spoken to me directly since the rehearsal dinner and is posting on social media about how some people just don't understand family. I feel guilty because I love my sister and truly want her wedding to be wonderful, but I also feel that my boundaries and career deserve respect. I'm wondering if I really am the asshole for refusing to be her unpaid wedding coordinator, especially after the repeated insults. I did show up and participate in the essential parts, but I refused to bend to unreasonable demands. So, Reddit AITA for refusing to go above and beyond for my sister's wedding after she repeatedly insulted my career and lifestyle. AITA for refusing to forgive my best friend after she sabotaged my promotion. I, 29F, have been best friends with Maya, 30F, since college. We met in our sophomore year and quickly became inseparable. We shared everything: our dreams, our failures, our crushes, and our career plans. Over the years, I've always supported her, sometimes even at my own expense. I never expected her to betray me, but what happened at work recently has completely shattered our friendship. I work in a mid-sized tech company as a project manager. I've been with the company for 6 years and have been consistently praised for my leadership, organizational skills, and ability to handle high-pressure projects. For the past year, a promotion to senior project manager has been on the table. I was confident I was the frontrunner because I had led several successful high-stakes projects and had excellent performance reviews. Maya also works at the same company, but in a different department. She's smart and capable, but she's also very ambitious and has always had a competitive streak. I never considered her a threat to me professionally because we've always had a mutual understanding about boundaries and supporting each other. A few months ago, my manager announced that the promotion would be awarded to one candidate after a review process. I prepared meticulously, gathering all my project reports, client feedback, and performance metrics. I even stayed late multiple nights to ensure every presentation and report was perfect. I confided in Maya about my hopes for the promotion, thinking she would be supportive. I didn't expect her to exploit that trust. 2 weeks before the final decision, I noticed some subtle changes at work. A couple of my colleagues mentioned hearing different versions of conversations I'd had with the management team, sometimes with details I never shared. I shrugged it off at first, thinking it could be a coincidence or simple misunderstandings. Then, on the day the promotion was announced, I found out that Maya had applied for the same promotion behind my back and had submitted a presentation using some of my ideas without giving me credit. I was blindsided. When I confronted her privately, she initially denied it and then said, "You would have done the same if you had the chance." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The promotion went to her, and while I was happy for her success in theory, I felt utterly betrayed. Not only had she taken advantage of my trust, but she also undermined me in front of the people who mattered most for my career. Since then, I have struggled to work with her. Our once close friendship has deteriorated completely. I stopped sharing personal details, and every interaction feels tense. When I try to express my disappointment, she deflects and says things like, "It's just business," or "You need to get over it. I didn't do anything wrong." I feel like my loyalty and honesty were dismissed, and our years of friendship were treated as inconsequential compared to her ambition. My coworkers and other friends at work have different opinions. Some say I should forgive her because holding a grudge could hurt my own career and mental well-being. Others tell me that a true friend wouldn't betray me like that, and that I'm justified in my feelings. My parents and sister think I'm overreacting, claiming it's normal in competitive work environments, and that I should move on for my own sake. I've tried to rationalize it. I thought about giving her another chance, but every time I do, I remember the way she denied her actions, and it's impossible to shake off the feeling of betrayal. I've been dealing with anger, sadness, and a loss of trust. I even considered transferring departments or leaving the company because working with her has become unbearable. But it's not that simple due to project commitments and personal financial reasons. I want to rebuild my professional confidence and focus on my own growth, but I'm struggling with the personal side of this. I used to see her as my confidant, my support system, and now I feel like I can't trust her at all. It's affecting my personal life as well, because I constantly second-guess people's intentions and motives. The dilemma is this. Some of our mutual friends have told me that forgiving her and moving past it would be the mature thing to do. Others have said that standing my ground and cutting her off is perfectly reasonable. I can't tell if I'm being petty and holding on to resentment too tightly, or if I'm justified in protecting myself from someone who clearly prioritized personal gain over a decade of friendship. So, AITA for refusing to forgive my best friend after she sabotaged my promotion? I feel like this goes beyond work. It's about trust, respect, and loyalty. I'm trying to figure out if I'm wrong for feeling hurt and refusing to continue our friendship on the same terms, or if I should swallow my pride for the sake of peace. I want to move forward in a way that keeps my dignity intact, but I'm constantly haunted by the thought that maybe I should just let it go and pretend nothing happened. I'm exhausted emotionally and mentally, and I don't know if maintaining any relationship with her is healthy anymore. I want honesty, accountability, and mutual respect, but right now, none of that exists. Has anyone dealt with a situation where a friend's ambition crossed the line into betrayal? And how did you navigate forgiveness or moving on? I'm struggling to find the balance between self-respect and being reasonable in the eyes of others. Hey friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. AITA for refusing to host my father's wedding at my house, even though he's been asking for months. I, 32F, live in a modest 3-bedroom house that I bought about 5 years ago. I live alone and have worked hard to make it my own space. I love hosting small gatherings for friends and family, but I've never hosted a large-scale event like a wedding. My father, 60M, recently got engaged to a woman I barely know, and he immediately asked if we could host the wedding at my house. He said he wanted it to be cozy and intimate, but later admitted that he expects around 70 to 80 people to attend. My house isn't built for that kind of crowd. It's a typical suburban house with a small yard and limited seating, so I immediately had reservations. When I first said I wasn't sure, he said I was being difficult and reminded me that my house is bigger than his and that hosting the wedding would save everyone a lot of money. I tried to explain that while I understand the financial reasoning, hosting a wedding is a massive undertaking. It's not just space, it's logistics, cleaning, seating, catering, parking, and coordination. I work full-time and have little experience organizing events of that scale, and my house isn't structurally or spatially suited for that many guests. I offered alternatives like having the wedding at a local venue or even renting a small hall, but he dismissed those ideas, saying it wouldn't have the same personal touch. I also brought up that I don't have the emotional bandwidth for it. My father has a habit of becoming overbearing in family matters. Growing up, he often expected me to take on responsibilities for family events without proper acknowledgement. I'm worried that if I agree to host, it will turn into a massive stressor for me, and my relationship with him could suffer if things go wrong. I tried to explain that my support could take other forms. I could help with planning, budgeting, and coordinating vendors, but the physical hosting at my house is something I cannot do. He became very emotional and said I was being selfish and ungrateful. He claimed that, as his daughter, I should want to help make his wedding special and that he's done so much for me over the years, so it's only fair I give back in a big way. I reminded him that I've always helped with family events, including his previous wedding, my siblings' birthdays, and family holidays. I told him that helping doesn't have to mean putting my home and life through weeks of preparation, stress, and a likely mess afterward. He argued that if I loved him, I'd make the sacrifice, and that it's a once-in-a-lifetime event, implying I was putting my comfort above his happiness. I also have practical concerns. My yard can barely accommodate a tent for 30 people, let alone 80. Parking is limited, and our street doesn't allow for large numbers of cars. The kitchen is small, and there's no proper dining space for that many people. I also worry about potential damage to my property. My house has hardwood floors, and I've invested in keeping it in good condition. He told me I was overthinking and that family will take care of things, but I know from experience that when you're hosting an event at your own house, most responsibilities fall on you, no matter what promises are made. After I refused, the situation escalated. He called my siblings to complain, and they've been trying to convince me to change my mind. My sister, 29F, said I was being dramatic and that it's just a few days of preparation for the most important day of our father's life. My brother, 35M, said I should think about family and tradition and that I'm prioritizing myself over him. My father has also started guilt-tripping me with messages like, "I can't believe you won't let me have my own wedding at my daughter's house," and "I guess my happiness doesn't matter to you." I feel trapped. I do want my father to have a happy wedding, but I also feel that hosting it is beyond my capabilities and would put me through extreme stress. I've suggested compromise options, like helping plan at a venue or even hosting a small family-only dinner at my house after the wedding. But he dismisses these ideas, saying they aren't the same. The tension in our family has grown because of this. My father seems hurt, my siblings are frustrated with me, and I feel guilty. Part of me wonders if I'm really being selfish, but another part knows that hosting a wedding at my house for 70 to 80 people without proper resources or planning is unrealistic. I worry that agreeing would lead to resentment, potential damage to my house, and a massive amount of stress that I'm not equipped to handle. I'm also concerned about precedent. If I host this, it might become expected for any future family milestone or event to be held at my house, which I know I cannot manage. I want to support my father and celebrate with him, but I want it in a way that doesn't put me in a position of extreme stress and potential conflict. So, AITA for refusing to host my father's wedding at my house, even though he and my siblings think I should. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she publicly shamed me over a financial disagreement. I, 28F, have always had a complicated relationship with my older sister, Emily, 32F. Growing up, our parents were very strict about responsibilities, school, and chores, which created a lot of sibling tension. Despite the challenges, we were close during our teenage years, bonding over books, movies, and our shared love for animals. After college, I moved to a different state for work, and while we stayed in touch, our dynamic changed. Emily got married young and had 2 kids, while I focused on my career and personal growth. The conflict started when Emily got engaged to her fiancé, Mark, 34M, about a year ago. Initially, she seemed genuinely happy and included me in most of the wedding planning. I wanted to contribute financially, but since I wasn't in the same financial situation as Emily or Mark, I offered to help in non-monetary ways, like coordinating invitations, helping with decorations, or planning the bridal shower. She assured me that my help would be enough. Over the months, things escalated. Emily and Mark started expecting monetary contributions from close family members. While I understand that weddings are expensive, I simply couldn't afford a large sum. I explained that I could contribute in small ways, like covering my own travel and hotel costs, maybe helping with some minor expenses, but I wasn't able to contribute beyond that. Emily seemed to accept it first, but tensions grew when she mentioned that her parents and some relatives had donated significant amounts to cover certain aspects of the wedding. A month ago, Emily sent out a group message with all the close family, listing the contributions everyone had made toward the wedding. She accidentally included me, stating my contribution, $0 in bold letters next to my name. I was shocked and immediately felt humiliated. I reached out to her privately, asking why she would post something like that and explaining that I was contributing in other meaningful ways. She responded by saying, "This is how weddings work. Everyone pays, or they don't get to be part of the celebration." I tried to argue that there are many ways to be involved, and my help was valuable in other areas, but she dismissed me. I decided to confront her in person when I visited my hometown for a work trip. I told her that publicly shaming me over money was hurtful, disrespectful, and unfair. I reminded her that our relationship shouldn't be transactional and that a wedding should celebrate family, not divide it over finances. Emily became extremely defensive, saying I was being dramatic and that she was just being transparent. She even mentioned that if I couldn't afford to pay, I shouldn't attend at all. The situation spiraled further when our parents got involved. They tried to mediate, suggesting I find a way to contribute monetarily or just accept Emily's way of doing things. I told them that the issue wasn't the money, it was the humiliation and lack of respect. They said I was overreacting and that Emily was within her rights as the bride. My brother, who has always been a peacemaker, advised me to either pay or stay home to avoid family tension. After days of back and forth, I made the decision not to attend Emily and Mark's wedding. I sent her a detailed message explaining why I couldn't attend, emphasizing that it wasn't about money, but about how she treated me publicly and refused to acknowledge my contributions beyond financial ones. I expressed that I still love her, but I couldn't be part of a celebration where I was shamed in front of family. The response I received was explosive. Emily accused me of being selfish, ungrateful, and immature. She claimed I was prioritizing my pride over family, and that my absence would hurt the family more than anything. Mark agreed with her, saying that my behavior was embarrassing and that I was letting my resentment ruin a happy day. Our parents are disappointed, but remain mostly neutral, saying they wish I could compromise. Since then, the rest of the family has been divided. Some relatives understand my perspective, saying that public shaming over money is unacceptable and that my decision was reasonable. Others think I overreacted and should just go to the wedding, even if it means paying more than I can comfortably afford. Emily hasn't spoken to me since, and Mark has blocked me on social media. My friends support my decision, but I keep second-guessing myself because I've never missed a family event before, and this feels like a major rupture in our relationship. I also feel guilty about my niece and nephew because I know they were looking forward to me being there. I tried to explain that I would celebrate with them separately and still participate in other family events, but it doesn't seem to soften Emily at all. I've considered writing a formal apology or sending a gift, but I don't want it to seem like I'm conceding to the shaming. I honestly don't know how to mend things at this point. I know some people might say that weddings are about generosity and compromise, but I genuinely feel that being shamed publicly over financial contribution crosses a line. My contributions may not be monetary, but they are meaningful, and I refuse to be treated as if my worth to my family is measured by money. So, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she publicly shamed me for not contributing financially? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé? I, 28F, have always been close with my younger sister, Emily, 25F. Growing up, we did everything together: school projects, family vacations, late-night talks about boys and heartbreaks, and even our first jobs. Our parents, while loving, were always busy, and Emily and I relied heavily on each other for support and guidance. Over the years, our bond has remained strong, though like any sisters, we've had our fair share of arguments and disagreements. About a year ago, Emily started dating a man named Jason, 30M. Initially, I was cautiously optimistic. She was happy, and that's all I ever wanted for her. I met Jason a few times in casual settings, and while he seemed polite, something about him felt off to me. I couldn't put my finger on it, but my instincts kept whispering that I should be cautious around him. Emily, of course, was smitten and kept dismissing my concerns, saying I was overthinking and that I needed to give him a chance. As the months went by, my unease grew. Jason began making subtle, but increasingly uncomfortable comments. He would joke about controlling her social life, making statements like, "I don't really see why she needs to hang out with friends so often," or "You shouldn't dress like that around other men. It's disrespectful." At first, I thought maybe I was reading too much into things, but Emily never seemed to notice. She would laugh off his remarks and say he was just joking, even when his tone was serious. The real turning point came a few months before the wedding. Emily excitedly told me that Jason had proposed, and I congratulated her, though my stomach was in knots. Shortly after, I witnessed a confrontation between them. Emily wanted to attend a friend's birthday party, and Jason insisted she stay home because parties like that are a waste of time and could give people the wrong impression. Emily looked frustrated, but eventually agreed. Later, when she told me, she seemed unhappy, but she brushed it off. I was worried and tried to talk to her about it, but she said I was being paranoid and that I should trust her judgment. Despite my growing concerns, I continued to support Emily. I helped her plan parts of the wedding, gave advice on vendors, and even attended some pre-wedding events. However, Jason's behavior kept escalating. He started controlling guest lists, monitoring Emily's messages, and subtly undermining her family. At one point, he refused to let her invite some of her cousins because they are too dramatic. Emily reluctantly followed his wishes. I tried to step in diplomatically, but she told me not to interfere, saying it was her choice. The last straw came when Emily asked me to help her choose her wedding dress. I went with her to the boutique, and everything seemed fine until Jason arrived unexpectedly. He began criticizing dresses I thought looked beautiful on her, saying they were too attention-seeking or not modest enough. I was shocked and told him that Emily should wear whatever made her happy, not what he deemed appropriate. He rolled his eyes and told me I didn't understand the dynamic of a relationship. I felt furious and humiliated in front of Emily, who, instead of defending me, told me to calm down and not make a scene. After that incident, I realized that attending the wedding would feel like condoning Jason's behavior. I voiced my concerns to Emily one last time, explaining that I didn't feel comfortable participating in an event where her autonomy was being undermined. I told her I loved her and wanted the best for her, but I couldn't be there if Jason continued to disrespect her and everyone around him. Emily was furious. She accused me of being selfish, saying that my absence would ruin her special day and that I was choosing my feelings over our relationship. She even threatened to cut off contact if I didn't attend. I stood firm. I wrote her a letter expressing my love, my concerns, and my reasoning. I didn't want to create drama on our wedding day or publicly shame Jason. I simply could not in good conscience celebrate someone who seemed intent on controlling and belittling my sister. Emily didn't respond to the letter for weeks, and when she finally did, she was cold and distant. Our parents are caught in the middle. They understand my concerns but feel I am being too rigid and should support Emily no matter what. Family members have taken sides. Some agree with me. Others think I'm overreacting. Since then, our relationship has become strained. Emily and I communicate rarely, mostly through brief texts. I see pictures from the wedding online, and I felt a mix of sadness, anger, and guilt. I wonder if I overstepped, if I should have tried harder to mend things before the wedding, or if I did the right thing by prioritizing my sister's well-being over appearances. Now, with some distance, I'm unsure if I handled this appropriately. I genuinely love my sister and want a positive relationship, but I also feel strongly that attending the wedding would have sent the wrong message, that it's acceptable for someone to treat her in a controlling or dismissive way. I'm left questioning whether my absence was an act of loyalty to my sister or an overreaction fueled by my discomfort with Jason. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé? AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé stay at my house after he humiliated me in front of my family? I, 31F, have a younger sister, Rachel, 28F, and we've always been close. Our relationship has its ups and downs like any siblings, but we usually support each other. Rachel has been with her fiancé, Ben, 30M, for about 2 years, and until recently, I considered him polite and respectful. However, an incident that happened last month completely changed my perspective, and I feel torn about how my family perceives my reaction. I live in a medium-sized apartment downtown, and I have a fairly open-door policy with family. Rachel and Ben often visit, and I never hesitate to make them feel welcome. 2 weeks ago, Rachel told me they were in town for the weekend and asked if Ben could stay over since their hotel had a booking issue. I agreed because, again, I've never had a problem hosting them, and I wanted to help. On Friday evening, Rachel and Ben arrived. Everything seemed normal at first. We had dinner together, and I thought the night was going well. Later, we were sitting in my living room, and I mentioned that I had applied for a new position at work, something I'd been excited about for months. I casually talked about the project I was working on, the challenges I faced, and why I felt qualified. Ben's reaction shocked me. He immediately started criticizing my approach to the project, claiming that my strategy was naive and that my manager would never consider promoting me if I kept making mistakes like that. I was taken aback because I hadn't asked for his opinion, and the tone was condescending. I told him I appreciated advice, but that I was confident in my methods, trying to keep things polite. He didn't stop. Over the next 10 minutes, he went on to list what he considered all my flaws in detail, including my time management, communication style, and even minor personal habits. At one point, he said, "Honestly, if I were in your shoes, I'd be embarrassed to show this to anyone." Rachel looked uncomfortable, but she didn't intervene. My heart was racing, and I felt humiliated in my own home. I finally asked him to stop, telling him that this was my personal space and that I didn't appreciate being treated this way. He laughed and said I was overreacting and that I shouldn't take criticism personally. After that, the evening became tense. I mostly retreated to my bedroom, trying to calm down. Rachel tried to talk to me later, saying that Ben didn't mean anything by it and that he was just trying to be helpful. I told her that being helpful doesn't involve insulting someone repeatedly in their own home. She seemed torn between defending her fiancé and acknowledging my feelings. The next morning, Ben acted like nothing had happened. He made jokes at my expense in front of Rachel and even made a snide comment about my coffee-making skills. I told him firmly that he couldn't stay at my house again. Rachel asked me to reconsider, saying that it was just one misunderstanding and that I should be more forgiving for the sake of family harmony. I refused. My parents and other siblings found out about the situation and have been pressuring me to apologize to Ben, claiming that I'm being too sensitive and that it's normal for couples to have disagreements. Rachel has been particularly persistent, telling me that if I don't forgive him, it will create lasting tension within the family and could even affect her wedding plans. I've tried to explain that my issue isn't with Rachel. It's with Ben's behavior and the fact that he humiliated me in my own home. I feel like my boundaries and dignity were completely disregarded. I don't see how allowing him to stay again would be anything but a repeat of the same disrespect. I've also considered the long-term implications. Rachel and Ben's wedding is in 6 months, and they expect me to be fully involved. I'm worried that attending events with Ben will be stressful and that I'll have to constantly tolerate passive-aggressive comments or unsolicited critiques. On the other hand, I don't want to be ostracized from my family or appear unreasonable. Some friends have told me I'm right to protect my space and stand up for myself, while others say I should let it go for the sake of family peace. I keep going back and forth in my mind. Am I really being too rigid, or is this a valid boundary? I've never felt so conflicted about a family issue. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé stay at my house after he humiliated me in front of my family? I'm struggling to balance maintaining my dignity with keeping family relationships intact. I feel like I'm being painted as the villain in this situation simply for setting a boundary. But at the same time, I wonder if I should just swallow my pride to avoid drama. I don't want to cut off Rachel entirely, but I also don't want to allow Ben to treat me this way again. I feel stuck between protecting myself and preserving my family ties, and I don't know what the right choice is in the eyes of others. Has anyone been in a situation where a family member's partner disrespected you, and how did you handle it without burning bridges completely? AITA for refusing to let my cousin stay with me indefinitely even though she claims she has nowhere else to go. I, 36F, have a cousin, Samantha, 31F, who has always struggled with stability. She's had multiple short-term jobs, frequently moved between apartments, and relied on friends and family for support. I've helped her in the past, letting her stay a week or two during emergencies and occasionally lending her money. I have always tried to set clear boundaries because I know she has a tendency to become dependent. About 4 months ago, Samantha called me in a panic. She had been evicted from her apartment because she had fallen behind on rent and claimed she had nowhere to live. She asked if she could move in temporarily while she figured things out. I agreed, thinking a week or two would give her time to make arrangements. Initially, everything went smoothly. She was quiet, helped with minor chores, and seemed respectful of my space. I assumed the arrangement would remain manageable. After the first week, her behavior began to change. She started leaving dirty dishes in the sink for days, piling laundry in shared spaces, and inviting friends over without asking. When I reminded her of my house rules, she dismissed my concerns, claiming she was stressed and needed freedom. I tried to remain patient, but her behavior began to encroach on my privacy and routine. 2 weeks in, Samantha suggested she might stay longer, saying that finding an affordable apartment was taking longer than expected. I explained firmly that my home was not a permanent solution and that she needed to find her own place. She reacted emotionally, accusing me of being selfish and unkind. She insisted that I should allow her to stay because I had the means and she had nowhere else to go. Over the next month, her demands escalated. She began asking for money for food, utilities, and other expenses she had neglected. I explained that I could not cover her costs and that she needed to take responsibility for herself. She refused to consider any alternatives, saying that only living with me permanently would work. She also started leaving personal items all over the house, as if she already lived there. I had to lock certain rooms and enforce strict rules to maintain my privacy. Samantha also started involving other family members, sending messages that I was refusing to help and framing it as a moral failing. Some relatives expressed disappointment, saying I should be more understanding, while others agreed that temporary help was reasonable but permanent residency was not. I tried to communicate calmly, emphasizing that I wanted her to succeed and be safe, but that I could not compromise my home and boundaries. Her behavior became increasingly manipulative. She sent multiple daily messages, implying that I was responsible for her unhappiness and claiming that I would regret my decision. She told my cousin group that I was heartless and that family should always help without question. This caused tension among extended family members and created awkward situations at family gatherings. I offered tangible alternatives, helping her find an affordable apartment, assisting with rental applications, helping her find roommates, or even co-signing if she could demonstrate financial responsibility. She refused all of these solutions, insisting that only moving in with me would solve her problems. She also threatened to cut contact if I didn't comply. The situation has been extremely stressful. I want to help Samantha and maintain a relationship, but I also have to protect my home, finances, and mental health. Allowing her to stay permanently would likely cause long-term tension and resentment. I've tried to empathize with her, offer practical solutions, and maintain kindness while enforcing boundaries. I feel guilty because she is upset and because some family members view me as unsupportive, but I also feel justified because compromising would not solve her problems and would harm me as well. Even though I've tried repeatedly to be helpful, Samantha refuses anything that doesn't involve living with me permanently. I worry about the future, the impact on my relationship with her, and the strain it has caused in the family. At the same time, I know that standing firm is necessary for my well-being and to encourage her independence. AITA for refusing to let my cousin live in my house indefinitely. Even though she claims she has nowhere else to go and insists my refusal is selfish and cruel. AITA for refusing to let my brother move into my house permanently after he helped renovate it. Even though he claims he deserves to stay. AITA here. I, 39F, have been dealing with a stressful situation involving my brother, Alex, 37M, that has caused major tension in my household and strained relationships with other family members. I'm struggling to figure out whether I'm wrong or if he is being unreasonable. Some background. About 4 years ago, my husband, Ryan, 41M, and I bought a house that was in serious need of renovation. The kitchen was outdated, the bathrooms needed complete overhauls, the floors were damaged, and the backyard was overgrown and unusable. We knew it would take time, effort, and a significant amount of money to turn it into our long-term home. Alex, who works in construction and has some interior design experience, offered to help with the renovations. I initially thought this was generous and a great way to save money while spending time together as a family. Over the next 12 months, Alex was heavily involved in the renovation process. He spent nearly every weekend and many weeknights helping with plumbing, drywall, flooring, painting, and furniture selection. He also contributed financially on a few occasions, purchasing materials or tools that were essential for the renovations. Without his help, we would have had to hire professionals for many of these tasks, which would have cost tens of thousands of dollars more and extended the renovation timeline considerably. I was genuinely appreciative of his contributions and thought our collaboration strengthened our relationship. Once the renovations were complete, the house looked incredible. That's when Alex began suggesting that he should move in permanently. He argued that since he had invested so much time, effort, and some money into the renovation, he deserved a place in the house. He framed it as mutually beneficial. He would have a comfortable home without paying rent, and Ryan and I would continue benefiting from his skills and maintenance abilities. I explained that while we deeply appreciated his help, our home is our private space, and we were not comfortable with him living there full-time. I suggested alternative arrangements, such as weekend visits, temporary stays, or helping with specific projects, but he dismissed all these options. Alex insisted that anything less than permanent residency was unfair and accused me of being selfish and ungrateful. The situation worsened when he started involving other family members. He presented the story as me refusing to acknowledge his contributions, portraying himself as the wrong party. Our parents encouraged us to consider his sacrifices and allow him to move in. Some of my siblings also sided with him, claiming that since he helped build the house, he had a moral claim to live there. I tried to explain that gratitude does not equate to ownership or residency, but they refused to listen. Alex also began showing up unannounced, claiming he needed to check on the house or fix minor issues. He criticized furniture placement, paint colors, organization, and other small details, implying that the house wasn't being cared for properly without his input. I tried to set clear boundaries, explaining that while his advice is appreciated, final decisions about the house are ours. He dismissed these boundaries and framed me as controlling and unreasonable. Ryan supports my position, but even he is frustrated by the constant tension. He agrees that allowing Alex to move in permanently would disrupt our privacy and household routine, but he is also worried about the ongoing family drama. The conflict has created significant stress in our household and has made family gatherings uncomfortable and awkward. I have attempted multiple compromises. I offered for Alex to stay for limited visits, contribute to household bills if he stayed temporarily, or help financially with smaller projects. But he refuses any solution that doesn't involve full-time residency. He argues that his contributions entitle him to permanent residency and warns that if we refuse, our relationship will be permanently damaged. This tension has also started affecting our children. Alex occasionally takes their side, suggesting that they should support family and implying that he should live with us, which creates confusion and tension at home. Ryan and I have spent hours explaining boundaries and reasoning, but his insistence continues to create friction. I have also considered other alternatives, like helping him find a rental nearby or assisting him in purchasing his own home, but he refuses anything that doesn't involve moving in with us. He argues that his work on the renovations gives him moral entitlement to live in the house, and that anything else would be insufficient recognition of his efforts. Despite repeated attempts to communicate respectfully, establish boundaries, and offer compromises, Alex continues to pressure me, involve other family members, and frame the situation as a moral failing on my part. I feel trapped between maintaining my household, protecting my privacy, and preserving family relationships. So, AITA for refusing to let my brother live in our house permanently after he helped renovate it, even though he claims he earned that right. I feel like I am trying to protect my home, my marriage, and my children's environment, but he and other family members portray me as selfish and ungrateful. I'm struggling to determine whether I am really in the wrong. AITA for refusing to let my sister move in with me after she got evicted. I, 32F, have always tried to be the responsible one in my family. I live in a small city apartment on my own, working full-time as a graphic designer. I pay my bills on time, have a small savings account, and try to maintain a peaceful, stable life. My younger sister, Lily, 28F, has always been a bit more chaotic, to put it mildly. She's had a string of bad luck with jobs, relationships, and most recently, housing. Over the past 5 years, she's lived in 4 different cities and has had 3 serious relationships that ended messily, usually involving her moving in and then getting kicked out. Last month, she called me in a panic. She had been evicted from her apartment in another state after falling behind on rent. Her roommates had left, her landlord had finally had enough, and she had nowhere to go. She asked if she could move in with me, just for a little while, promising she would pay rent as soon as she got settled and found a new job. My first instinct was to help her. She's my sister, after all, and I know that being suddenly homeless is terrifying. But the more I thought about it, the more hesitant I became. My apartment is a one-bedroom, 600 square foot space. I live in it alone because I need room to breathe, and I have a routine that keeps me sane. Sharing it with someone else, especially someone I have a history of tension with, would be extremely stressful. I've had experiences before where she stayed over just for a week and ended up staying a month or more, using my food, leaving messes, and disappearing for days without explanation. My anxiety levels spike in those situations, and I'm not exaggerating when I say I can barely function when my environment is chaotic. I called her back and told her honestly that I didn't feel comfortable having her move in with me. I offered alternatives. I could help her find a short-term rental, provide financial support for a deposit, or even help her look for a sublet nearby. I also said that if she really had no options, I could help her get into a local shelter temporarily. She got extremely upset. She started crying and said I was being cruel, that I never support her, and that I always put my comfort above family. She claimed I was treating her like a stranger instead of sister. I tried to explain my reasoning, that I couldn't guarantee my mental health would survive having her in my small apartment, that I've been burned before when trying to accommodate her, and that my financial situation wouldn't allow me to take on her rent permanently. I reminded her that I had offered alternatives that didn't involve me losing my space or sanity. She said nothing I said mattered, that I just didn't care about her, and that I was selfish. After our phone call, she texted me multiple times saying that our parents would be disappointed in me, that I was choosing things over family, and that she would tell anyone who asked that I refused to help her in her time of need. I didn't respond to the texts immediately because I was overwhelmed, but when I finally did, I reiterated that I love her and want her to be safe, but I cannot have her move in with me. I offered again to help financially or with resources. She responded by saying that if I really loved her, I wouldn't care about my comfort and would just let her move in. Our mutual friends have been contacted as well, with her telling them I am refusing to help her because I don't love my family. Some of them have reached out to me, confused and angry, asking why I wouldn't let her stay. I've tried explaining my perspective, but people keep framing it as me being cruel or selfish. I've spoken with my parents about it, and while they understand my concerns about my apartment and mental health, they also said that family should support each other in times of crisis and suggested I make some sort of compromise, even if it's uncomfortable. I don't see a feasible compromise. Even if I took a week off work to have her temporarily stay, it would create huge stress for both of us, and she has a tendency to push boundaries, which would likely escalate into conflict. I've been getting a lot of anxiety over this situation. Part of me feels guilty because she is my sister and she really does have nowhere else to go, but the other part of me feels that I am not obligated to sacrifice my stability and mental health, especially when I've already offered help in other ways. I worry that if I give in, it will set a precedent where she feels entitled to stay anytime she faces trouble, which could become a recurring issue. I feel like the world is telling me that the right thing is to take her in, but every past experience has shown me that it will be destructive for me. I'm not trying to abandon her. I just cannot host her in my living space. I'm trying to support her in ways that are safe for both of us, but she refuses to see that. She's now saying she might cut contact with me if I don't change my mind, and honestly, I don't want our relationship to deteriorate over this, but I also can't risk my mental health. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister move in after her eviction, even though I've offered other ways to support her. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after learning her fiancé's passed. I, 28F, have always had a complicated relationship with my sister, Emily, 32F. Growing up, we were close, but as we got older, our personalities clashed more and more. Emily has always been very controlling and, frankly, judgmental. I try to stay out of her way, but sometimes she finds a way to involve me in her life in ways that make me uncomfortable. Recently, Emily got engaged to a man named Jason, 35M. On the surface, Jason seems charming, successful, and polite. Everyone in the family immediately adored him. He has a stable job, a nice home, and seems genuinely affectionate towards Emily. However, a few months before their wedding, I stumbled across some information that made me pause. A mutual acquaintance from Jason's past reached out to me on social media. They told me that Jason had a history of manipulating partners, gaslighting, and financially exploiting them. This person provided specific examples, including embezzling from previous relationships and emotional abuse. At first, I didn't believe it. I want to give Emily the benefit of the doubt, and I know people can change. But after doing a bit of my own research, I found a pattern of behavior that deeply worried me. I wrestled with what to do. Emily and I have had disagreements in the past, where she accused me of being judgmental or intrusive. I didn't want to overstep, but I also felt a responsibility to protect my sister. I tried to gently bring it up to her. I said I had come across some concerning information about Jason and that I thought she should be aware. Her reaction was explosive. She accused me of trying to sabotage her happiness and insisted that I had no right to question her fiancé. She told me that she loved Jason and that I needed to trust her judgment. She even threatened to cut me out of the wedding if I kept pushing. I tried to calm her down, but it was clear that any discussion was off the table. At this point, I was torn. On one hand, I didn't want to miss my sister's wedding. It's a major milestone, and I want to support her if she truly believed in her relationship. On the other hand, I couldn't shake the feeling that attending the wedding would be endorsing a relationship I genuinely believed was harmful for her. The thought of sitting through the ceremony, watching her marry someone I felt was dangerous, made me anxious and upset. I finally made the decision to step back. I sent Emily a long message explaining that I loved her and wanted the best for her, but I could not in good conscience attend the wedding knowing what I knew. I expressed my hope that she would reconsider the relationship, but I emphasized that my decision was about protecting my own mental health and integrity, not about trying to control her choices. Her response was swift and angry. She called me selfish, a drama queen, and said I was choosing to punish her for her happiness. Our parents got involved, and they tried to mediate. They understand my concerns, but also feel that I should at least attend for family unity. They argue that Emily is an adult and that it's not my place to decide who she marries. They also pointed out that if I don't go, the family will be forced to pick sides, which could create a lasting rift. I've spent weeks debating whether I made the right choice. I've received messages from other relatives. Some agree with me and support my decision, saying that it's better to stand by your principles than enable a toxic relationship. Others think I'm overreacting and being dramatic, insisting that I should put family above everything else. Adding to my stress, Emily has stopped talking to me entirely. She ignored my birthday, and my attempts to reach out have been met with silence or curt responses. I feel guilty about the estrangement, but also feel strongly that attending the wedding would betray my own values. I've tried to consider alternatives, like attending only the ceremony or keeping interactions minimal, but I feel like even that would compromise my boundaries. I'm torn between maintaining a relationship with my sister and standing firm in my decision. I also worry that my parents might resent me in the long term, or that the family divide could worsen over time. I understand that Emily is making her own choices, and I respect that to an extent. However, knowing what I know about Jason, I can't bring myself to celebrate the union. My hope is that she eventually sees his true nature before it's too late, but I'm realistic about the possibility that she never will. So, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because I believe her fiancé has a harmful past, even though it's causing a family rift and her anger. I feel conflicted because I love her, but I also feel that my moral and emotional boundaries are at stake. I'm trying to navigate a situation where I want to be supportive but also stay true to my principles, and I can't shake the feeling that attending might compromise both. I haven't spoken to Emily in weeks, and the tension in the family is palpable. I would like to hear an outside perspective on whether my decision makes me an asshole or if it's justified given the circumstances. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos also. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.